Hey everyone, after my successful swap to the red Tupperware, as I like to call it, of my 2022 SRS, since it's not such a great riding day today, I have another project, and that is to put on a tidy tail. What's a tidy tail, you ask? It basically eliminates this license plate swing arm holder and relocates the license plate up under the tail light. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, number one is just for looks. I kind of like having the license plate up high. But the other thing is it completely eliminates this swing arm. So I don't know what this trend is with the swing arm mounted stuff, but basically this thing right here just kind of sticks out here. And yes, there's a fender, so there's a potential that if I lose this, I'm going to get a little bit more spray, but there are ways to compensate for that. But if you ever break the belt and you need to replace it on the side of the road, not having this swing arm in the way makes it much easier to swap out. So the kit that I bought came from Corbin, same people that make the aftermarket motorcycle seats. This is a carbon fiber piece is my understanding, and all of the hardware that comes with it. Now this kit is a little bit pricey. I'll put a link in the description. I bought this before I knew any better, and people were doing it themselves with cheaper ways to do it. This also does have instructions, and they seem to be reasonable, but I thought for people who are visual learners, making this video would make things a little bit easier. There's a little bit of prep work that has to be done, one of which is to remove the seat. Now in my case, I have the entire Corbin seat, which just releases with the OEM key, and this entire structure just pulls off. If you still have the OEM seat, that's the way to release the pillion seat, and the seat for the rider has to be removed with a Torx key. You're going to need to remove this as well because we're going to be routing some of this wiring from down here, underneath here, and back here. The other thing I noticed in the instructions is that my top case needs to come off because we need access to this under top case area. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now rather than in the order that they recommend in the instructions. So even before I do that, I'm going to put the whole bike on the center stand. This makes the whole thing a little bit more stable. I normally keep some stuff in the storage tray, so that's another thing. I'll pull these out, but this whole tray has to come out as well, but we'll get to that in the order that's described. If you have the Shad top case, the way to take it off is to unlock it, and instead of opening up to get to your stuff, you push on the bottom part, lift it off at the rear, and then just lift the whole assembly off. So now this gives you access to this adapter plate, and we're going to have to take this off. In order to do that, we have to pry these two pieces out here. 1, 2. They're just held in place with clips, so you just got to be careful when you wedge something between here and pop those off. Okay, I pried these covers off. You can see where the little tabs are here, here, and here. So when you're prying these out, just make sure you don't snap these off. And you do this on both sides, and then it reveals the hardware. This is assuming you have the Shad case. Just kind of remember where things were and get the appropriate sockets to be able to loosen that. And of course, you're probably going to have to come from the bottom as well. You'll need a set of tools to get these 4 bolts off. And now this whole thing comes off. So that's the plate. And according to the instructions, this plate also has to come off. And this is a T30. I'm going to go ahead and take these out. All right, that's all 4 bolts. The other thing I like to do is get a little container and actually put a label on what everything is, because after a while, all of these things start to look very similar and you can't remember which ones went where. Now my OEM plate is off. All right, back to the instructions, which the next thing it tells us to do is to remove the 2 back bolts on the handrails and loosen the 2 front bolts on the handrails. All right, and this is also a T30. Okay, the next thing is to remove these 2 Torx bolts from the storage tray, and then remove the tray itself. Now for me, I'm going to have some of my DJ Rapid electronics underneath here, so I just need to be careful that stuff doesn't shift and I have trouble getting it back in there. Okay, so there are those, and this whole tray comes out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 in there because I know they go together. Okay, it's actually fairly open, but there's my DJ Rapid hardware right in there, some of the electronics, but it looks like I can easily get past that. All right, next we're going to cut the zip ties that hold the license plate light wire in place. So I got a set of nippers here. I'll go ahead and do those. You could also use a utility knife. Just be careful you don't cut what you're not supposed to. But this entire wire assembly here is going to get relocated. So whatever is holding it in place needs to be cut off. I see a little peg right here. Cut the bottom of this one. This little peg actually then is loose because now there's nothing else holding it in place. So we'll pop this one out. Another one here. So this clip I'm not going to cut. Looks like you can just pull it out of the hole here. The next part of the instruction is to loosen this bolt right here for loosening the belt guard, and then taking the whole wiring assembly out from behind it. For whatever reason, mine was already out, so I don't need to do that. If yours is tucked behind here, you do want to open this one up. So the wire cover itself has a zip tie. So the instructions say to clip this one because we're going to need to peel this back. Just going to cut the clip off here. So the next thing is to peel back this wire cover so that we expose the clips that are in here. And I can see a little bulge here. That's where the connectors are. But you want to keep it intact because we're going to want to use it again. So here we go. There's the connector. And it looks like there's a little tab. So we want to push that tab. I'm going to use a little screwdriver to press this down and then push it out. And there it is. Okay. Again, we're going to reuse this, so no cutting. This wire tied down here, that does need to be clipped because the instructions do show that this wire goes behind the subframe. And I see that as coming up behind here. And it wraps around from here through some clips. So we want to peel it back all the way to here because then it's going to go underneath. There's one zip tie we got to unclip, and then all of the rest of these, they just pull out. It's hard to see. I put on a headlamp. So I do need to cut that wire tie. So there's a ground wire there. Two of these that are attached there. Interesting that the instructions don't mention that. I don't want to just route this over here with this circuitous path. So I do want to take this off, and I'll have to reattach these grounds right here. So we'll have to ground that somewhere else. This thing does tend to collect quite a bit of dirt. So not a bad idea to spray that out a little bit. It's a T25. Seems like a poor place for a ground. All the crud that can get in there. Looks like it's attached to the underside of this shock assembly as well. So I peeled this ground wire out of this tape right here. I cut this open and it's joined right here, and it attaches underneath the shock assembly, and it attaches down here, but it's not part of the taillight wiring. And this is the part we need to relocate. So I got to figure out a way to separate these two and keep them in place because I don't want to screw up any grounds. Okay, this over here is about where I want it to be for feeding it under the subframe. So I want to reattach this ground, but I want to route it in such a way that this isn't going to get caught up in the motor or anything else. So this ground wire was a little unexpected. That was not in the directions. So I reattached it to where it was originally. It's just that one of these was inside this wire cover. So I routed it where it originally went, secured it with some wire ties. Not super happy about having this wire off by itself, so I might come back and get some wire cover and cover this part up. But anyway, it's where it was before. I didn't have to cut anything. And then I routed the wires with the wire cover for the taillight back up into the frame underneath the shock absorber. I couldn't get it inside this because there's too much wiring here from the DJ Rapid. So I just routed up over here, and then it is supposed to go underneath that bolt, which they say to take out, but actually I can just fish it underneath, route it to the back, and see what comes next. So the next part is to remove the license plate. There go the instructions. License plate and license plate frame, and then these have to come out, and this light assembly has to come out. I found these to be T25s. There goes the back plate. Get a hold of that. And then it did say to snap off the cover here. Well, first of all, we can remove this entire assembly. You can work a little more comfortably on the ground. Okay, so I can fish this wire out. Alright, now we do have to remove these 3mm bolts. It holds the light in place. And I'm pretty sure I saw that this cover snaps off, but I don't want to break anything. There's a little clip right there. There we go. Little side clips. Alright, so the next thing is we're going to take this tail cover I got from Corbin, and we're going to route this wire through here and re-secure these with the original 3mm hex bolts. Okay, you got to dig into our hardware kit that comes with the Corbin tidy tail for the first time. Use these number 8 washers. And then we're going to re-secure this light. And it specifically says don't over tighten this so we don't crack the plastic. So let's just do this finger tight. Okay, there it is. Okay, before we move on, let's remove the rest of the swing arm. This is a T45 Torx. Alright, we're going to need a 13mm on the other side. And the whole assembly is sagging. There we go. The rear nut off. And the washer. And there it is. So now this is what the rear tire looks like without the whole swing arm assembly here. Okay, cool. So now, got to reassemble all of this up here. So one of the things they give you in the instructions is this drilling template. So we're going to go ahead and remove that and cut along the lines. So I went ahead and used an X-Acto knife to cut out the holes here so I can actually see where the molding marks are. You can see kind of this rough molding mark here and the rough molding mark here. So what I'm going to do is line those up so you can see the rough spots through there. Top one is a drill hole as well. So there are 4 drill holes. This one here where the molding mark is, and then the 3 others. And obviously I want to make sure that the wires underneath are out of the way. Alright, this is taped into place. Now these are 1/4 inch holes. I'm going to start with an 1/8 inch just to make sure I center it reasonably well. And these up here are going to be a little bit tougher because I got to drill in an angle. Actually, I can drill this from the underside now because I have a straighter shot with the drill. Since the holes are now located. Okay, let's hold this into place. Alright, looks like the holes line up. So we can attach these with the hardware. Alright, so next I fished this wire through the middle hole per the instructions. And then what we're going to do is this is going to be mounted on the underside. These supplied Allen bolts are going to come from the top with a big fat washer. And another one on the bottom. And then a lock nut. We'll go ahead and put these into place. 1, 2, steering clear of the turn signal wire. And 3, same thing. And then this hole is where the wire for the license plate light is going to come up. Alright, this middle hole here for the wire isn't big enough for the connector. So I'm going to chase that instead of a 1/4 with a 5/16. See if that's big enough. Yep. Alright, there we go. Okay, so there are my bolts sticking through. So I'm going to fasten one of these just to keep this in place. Okay, let's do the rear one. Large washer. So I need third set of hands. So that's held in place. Same thing for the other 2. Okay, before I tighten anything down, so I'm going to make sure all of this is in the right place. One thing that bothers me a little bit here is that I have an open hole here, so water could come spraying off the tire up into here. I might put some electrical tape on this so that it kind of plugs the hole, because I've got all my electronics here from my DJ Rapid, so I don't want water coming into the back of this area. I snugged everything up. They do warn you not to over tighten it because this is a plastic piece, plastic on both sides. And then I ended up fishing the wire underneath here. It does say to zip tie it. I'm not quite sure to what, because it can just lie in here. This rear little storage compartment. I did a quick fit test, and it does fit even with the wires just lying in the bottom. You do have to reconnect the license plate light. So I connected it all, started the ignition to make sure that it was lighting up, and it was, and I wasn't getting any ground faults or anything like that. So at that point, you really just want to tuck this back in here. Functionally, it works. Now it's a matter of putting everything back together. Okay, so the rear storage tray looks like it fits nice and flush. I did end up filling in that hole with a little bit of glue, and so hopefully that'll keep any kind of water out. I don't feel like it's squishing any of the wires. I tucked them out of the way, and this doesn't fill up that entire space anyway, so that kind of makes sense. So I was talking about the my little bowl. It says grab handle. I know these are the right bolts for that. And if you're really clever, you even put what the tool is needed. Top case plate T30. I didn't do that with these, but I think they're also T30s. Yep, sure enough. Grab handles are back. So now the next thing is to put my top case plate back on. The Givey mounting plate is back on. Just have to snap these guys back into place. I didn't show this part, but I just screwed these back on here. Pop the case back on there. Okay. Here's the hardware that's left from the installation kit. I ended up using my own zip ties, and yeah, there's some extra washers and whatnot. So left over is going to be this license plate holder, the little fender itself. A little bit of a bummer here. I got the tail of the dragon sticker there in my Boondocks, and unfortunately Boondocks is no more. And the little swing arm itself. So here's what it looks like without the rear swing arm assembly. A little bit cleaner look, and also way better access to the belt itself. So sorry for all the clutter in the background. I do think it's a little bit of a cleaner look. And again, I do like the access to the belt. As far as how long it took to do it, for me it was a couple hours. But then again, I'm not the fastest mechanic, and I took some breaks and just want to make sure that I'm not pinching any wires and things like that. Overall, the kit, not bad. About the only criticism I have is the license plate light hole has to be drilled bigger than it needs to be for the wire itself to get the connector through, which means it opens itself up for water ingress. And because, well, you can see all the dirt underneath here already, and I can see that, you know, this is probably going to get some dirt on it, splashed up from the rear tire. So yeah, I'm not super happy about the exposure here. It'd be kind of nice if there was some kind of a little plate here. But anyway, I did glue this up with some rubber cement, added some electrical tape, so it should keep the water out of it, but I'll check that occasionally. All right, I know this is a very specific audience that might be interested in this, so if you've gotten this far, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.